All right, so just going to do a quick example of the type of like the difference really between kind of a rule-based workflow, which is where I think that everyone should start when they're sort of wanting to build agents. You should start with workflows and then increase to AI powered workflows, AI enhanced workflows. And then from there, you understand when you need AI, what it can do, and when you need sort of a dynamic agentic system that can call tools variably. So first, we're just going to do a very simple a very simple workflow that's going to be rule based. No AI is necessary. It's just an automation. So here we have a Gmail trigger that I've already tested and I pinned the data. So basically, when something comes through in any node, you're allowed to pin it, which means we can just keep it here for testing purposes rather than every time having to fetch a test event and maybe send a new email or grab something. So I'm just pinning the data here just so we can test it all the way through. So, like I said, in here, what we're getting is like IDs of the email, the thread ID, label IDs. We're getting a ton of different stuff, right? We don't want to look at any of this in this case. I mean, maybe we want to look at like who it's from and who it was sent to. But right now, for this example, we only want to look at the actual email body, which is right here. So in a text field, we have the subject over here, we have the date, but we just want to look at the actual body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab an edit fields node. So edit fields is a really important one where we're basically just able to set data and we can set it for more consistency, for just cleaning things up. So what I'm going to do is on the left, you can see the input. On the right, you can see our output, which there's nothing on the output yet because we haven't executed this node. But on the left is the data coming in, which is a ton of messy stuff. And we can look at it in either the schema view, which just shows like the schema of different nodes. And we can see within the nodes, there's different properties. Table view, which just is, a table, and we can choose the different nodes here if there were more. And then JSON view is the actual JSON of the node output, which I don't really like to look at. But all of them, the important thing is that you can drag and drop different sections. So that's what's important to remember. Anyways, I'm just going to go to schema, which is usually my favorite to look at. And I'm just going to close out of this stuff because we want to get to the actual text of the email, which is right here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new field and we're just going to call this email. So on the left or on the right, it's going to come through as email because that's what we're looking for, right? Or actually, I'll just say email content, make it even more intuitive. So email content is a field we're creating. A field is just like a column of data. And what we're going to drag in is dynamically, we always want to get the text of the email. So no matter what, if we got a new email, we'd still be getting this. So I'm going to hit test step. And on the right, you can see we've created a field called email content, and then we have the email content. So now that's all we have to look at. Rather than looking at all this messy stuff, we're just going to be looking at just the email content. So perfect. So now let's say what's next in the automation is we want to understand what type of email this is. So we could basically, let's say we're going to add something like a switch. So this is going to route the incoming information, which all we want to look at is this. We want to route it down to either like the billing team or the tech support team or the general inquiry team. And so now what we're going to do is set up these rules of how do we choose which way it goes. So we can add as many different rules as we want. For now, let's just do two, keep it simple, and we'll rename them. So output one will go to the billing team. Oops, can't type. And output two will go to the tech team. Okay, so now if we close out of this node, we can see there's now two branches. So we can have information go this way, or we can have information go this way. And it will be decided based on these routing rules. And right now, we're going to set up routing rules that don't require AI. But in an AI enhanced workflow, you could use AI to reason and make these rules. But right now, let's just keep it simple. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to drag in the email content right here. And so we're saying value one. Does this email content, which by the way, up here, when things come through in these two curly braces and we're using like $JSON and it's green, this means it's a variable, which is just referencing the email content from the previous node. And then we get our result, which is what actually lives in that variable. So this will change every time. Based on the email, this result will be different. Anyways, we're saying, does this variable contain, so I'm going to go to, it's a string variable type, which means, it's a word, number, date and time, Boolean, true or false, lists, objects. But right now we're just working with a string and we're going to say contains. So if the email contains, and we're just going to say the word invoice, then it's going to be pushed to the billing team. So if I hit test step, we will see that it goes down the billing team branch. There's nothing in the tech team branch because we have the word invoice right here in the email. So now we can see one item, which would go down this way. We could also set up these rules down here where we would basically drag in the email again, and we'd say, okay, if the email contains the word bug, then we're going to send it to the tech team. So once again, I'll hit test step, and it's still going to continue and only go down the billing team because it has the word invoice. And then from here, we would set up, okay, here is our logic for, I'm just going to grab this node just as a complete example. We would send data this way if we wanted to push it, like either maybe message our billing team on Slack and say, hey, we got this email, or maybe even write an email ourselves. So this is where we would do it. But if we wanted to do stuff for the tech team, we'd add data down here, and then we can branch off different ways based on the email coming through. And we didn't even use AI here. So that is a use case of like a rule-based workflow and how you could set up, maybe it's numerical data, and you could just add even like a filter, a switch. So we could or not a switch, we just did a switch, an if. So this also does a very similar thing. It can route information off in a true branch or a false branch. And maybe we could just be saying, we have numbers coming through, and we would just want to say, like, does this field, if it was a number, we could say greater than 5. If it is greater than 5, it's going to go true. And if it's less than 5, we'll go this way. So maybe you're trying to qualify someone's budget. We could say, is it greater than or less than 10,000? If it's greater than, great, we'll send it up this way. We'll shoot them a personalized email. If it's less than 10,000, we'll go down this way and we'll say, hey, we'll shoot them an automated email that says, hey, like right now we're at capacity, we can't take you on, but here are some resources. So then you can just like set that up without even using AI at all. Because every time you use AI, if you're hosting in the cloud and you're calling these, OpenAI's API or Claude's API in order to actually talk to a large language model, it's going to cost you credits every time you talk to that AI. So if you don't need AI in a process, don't use it. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't increase your cost for no reason. If you can do something rule-based, then great, do it. However, there are going to be times where you need AI rather than rule-based. So let's keep this example, right? So we have an email coming through. And let's say what we want to do in this case is we want to decide the sentiment of the person. We want to see if they're happy or angry. So in this case, that sounds like something where we need AI because we have to have the AI read the email and understand. So we could use an OpenAI because we could message a model, right? So here's what I'll show first. We could message a model. We have our credentials set up. Let me just get back into my account. Actually, let me delete this one real quick because this is the one I set up as the demo, and I deleted the API key just so you guys couldn't steal it. Anyway, so now let me connect to like a Forum Mini, and we'll just say, so first of all, user message versus system message. There's a video in here about it, but what I'm going to do is just say like your job is to analyze the sentiment of the incoming email. So that's like me telling it its role. This is your job. And now up here in the user message, I'm just going to say, here is the incoming email. So it gets context of what it's reading. And then we just drag in on the left-hand side, we drag in the email content. And now here's the email content. If you have something as an expression, you can open it up full screen so you can see like this is what it looks like in the expression variable. This is what it's actually going to be reading. And then what we'll do is hit test step and we'll see what we get. So it's going to say the sentiment of the incoming email is predominantly neutral with a touch of mild frustration. The sender, John Doe, is expressing concern about an incorrect charge on this invoice, which indicates a level of dissatisfaction, blah, blah, blah. So now that we have an OpenAI node, a large language model, assessing the sentiment of the email. So that's great, right? But one thing to understand about n8n is that there's a lot of also other built-in nodes, and we actually have a sentiment analysis node right here. So we can use this, and it's looking for text to analyze. So once again, we're going to drag in that variable because we want it to look at the email. And now I'll hit test step, and we'll see what this one gets. This one errored because we don't have a model connected. So right now, we don't have this hooked up to any AI. Whereas this one, you saw we chose our model right here. So we chose the AI to talk to. Now, sometimes you have to connect a model outside of the node like this, where we choose from, we have Anthropic, we have Azure, we have Grok, we have Ollama, we have OpenRouter, we have all this kind of stuff. We have even Google Gemini Flash, which once again, you would come in here, create a credential, and you would paste in an API key. So that's what it looks like, right? But I already done that. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to choose like 2.0 Flash as our chat model in this case. We'll hit the play button above this node to test it. And now it's going to get us a sentiment. And in this case, it went down the negative branch. And it also, spits out the email content again. So this one came through as negative. So what we could do is we could say, okay, if it's positive, we'll send it off this way. And we will just have, we will have an automated message respond to them. If it's neutral, we'll just notify the team or something like that. And if it's negative, we'll notify the team, but also like tag it as urgent or something like that. So that's how you can use AI to determine the sentiment. But then you can use like you can have it branch down different paths in order to continue to take more action. Cool. So let's see. Is there anything else I want to touch on here? Yeah, I mean, I think that's really it. This covered aspects of like variables, setting stuff, how you can drag and drop stuff in. All of this stuff, like I said, is able to be drag and dropped into places, which is awesome. Just make sure that if you are using a variable, so if you have two curly braces and you want it to reference something like this, it has to be an expression, because if it's fixed, this is what it's going to be analyzing, because there's no result. This is just like what it's looking at. So if we try to test this, it's going to put it as neutral because it doesn't understand what it's reading. Like it's just reading this, right? But if we go back to expression, now we can see the actual result of what the AI is going to be reading. And we can hit test step, and it's going to go back to the negative branch because it actually is aware of what we're reading. So that's something important to note. But yeah, I think that one's going to be it. So the main thing really is just baby steps, because I know there's a lot of nodes. It can be confusing, and you have to work your way up from workflows to AI empowered workflows. And then we get into building agents, which is when it gets really cool. So thanks, guys.